So I was watching this podcast about it was the scientist who was trying to um, get to the truth of a drug for cancer back in the 60s and 70s, this kind of thing. And he was talking about how this organization rose up, and this is why I don't group. It's why I don't like grouping. I've said before, I'm just not a grouper. I'm for a lot of different things, but I don't like getting into the whole group thing because the unity thing gets hijacked. That's why every time I see people say, "Oh, they divide and conquer," yeah, okay, I'm just they do, but at the same time, they know how to tweak that whole unity thing too, because they get everybody united, and then everybody says, "No, we have to stay united and just focus on this." So the best I can explain this is this guy was talking about this organization called Science for the People. Okay, this is a radical group. They are, and likely started out with a couple of people that had good intentions. Okay, but what happens is that global syndicate, they have their finger on the pulse of everything. They do. So the minute they see any kind of movement or group of people rising that could be have any kind of significance behind them, then they infiltrate. What do you think happened January 6th? That wasn't true MAGA people. But so infiltrators come in to whatever the organization is because that global syndicate wants control of it. And so and they do it subtly. They do. They come in and they act like they're on your side and they're about your causes. That's why I don't like grouping. And then what they do is they slowly start to turn you. Or they say, okay, well, we'll focus on those problems later. This we have to focus on. And eventually, if you look, just check out any organizations that have been around a long time, any labor union, for instance, they eventually all take you back to the commie agenda. They do. That's why all labor unions is you're paying to be enslaved. That's what you're doing. You're saying, I want to be enslaved. Let me pay you to enslave me. Truly, that is what it is. End of story. It is. And people don't stop to think about it because there's a bunch of, like National Nurses United has they've radicalized 175,000 nurses. Okay, likely really young ones maybe, but this system knows how to infiltrate all these organizations. So ultimately, this is why I fall back on the Bible, because no matter which way you go, it ends up getting hijacked. And yeah, you can try to stop that at all costs, but over time, this is why, like, we should have never had the FDA. We should have never had the CDC. None of these things. But there were people that said, well, no, should have somebody that regulates drugs. Well, no, there was people back in the early 60s or, well, earlier than that were like, no, why is the FDA deciding what I want to, what I should take or not? Like, that's the thing. The minute you get the government involved in medicine, then it takes away from people. You're taking freedoms away. But then if everybody can have whatever they want, whatever drug they want, anytime they want, then you could have a society that's very, goes into anarchy. So and once a society goes into anarchy, then it serves the global syndicate because then they come in and then they do all their restructuring, and it'll never be for your benefit. It'll be for theirs, which will be a commie agenda that will lead you to the United Nations. And the United Nations isn't a good place. It just isn't. People can look at who are the ambassadors for these. It's always your Angeline. It's all your most depraved individuals. Okay. And so when I see the nursing organization align with that, it's like, you disgust me. You do. You're about a political agenda. You're operating on a political agenda. I don't care if you're a nurse or not. You are. It's just obvious. It doesn't matter about left and right so much. It matters about that global syndicate always wanting to take whatever movement, whatever association, whatever it is, into this communism, which is this need of these few people at the top, these global families that just have this incestuous need to just dominate people, really. I think you could have a good society without all these layers and not need FDA's CDC public health. You don't. People should be able to make their own decisions. And under a constitutional republic, you are given that. Under a democracy, that's why we're not a democracy. But we've had a bunch of politicians and organizations that tell you that that's it. So they tell you it so much so you realize it's a democracy, 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 democracy. No, we're not. No, we're not. Your democracy bullshit is the reason why we're in the place we are. A constitutional republic is about each individual's rights, each individual being free. Democracy is about you have to do this for the whole. No, you don't want to do that. That is your pathway to communism. It is. You have to do. Why do you think there's all these movements and religions? You can see it. You can tell if you really listen to people, because they'll start talking about we're one. We're one in one whole. No, we're not. And that's when they bring in their whole balls of light and stuff. That we're all one big ball of light. And no, if you want individual freedom, then you do not want to be a democracy. You would want the democracy to die. If you want individual freedom, then you want the constitutional republic, which is what our founders wanted. But there was too many people, those global families, that get in and they twist it. So this was this organization, the Science for the People. I went on their website because they're still around, and they have principles of unity. See, it's all about unity with these people. It's about united. Yeah, there's a point where, like everybody says, divide and conquer. We don't want them to divide us. Yeah, you don't want to be so united, though, that you're not paying attention to who's leading you. Like what's going on. Because these people will infiltrate whether you're divided or whether you're united. They will. They've been doing this a long time. They know what they're doing. And so they get these like this Science for the People. This is a radical group. You go on their site and it's like, we demand this, we demand that. Okay, the minute you start making demands, it's not going to be a good day. It's not. That should tell you that's a radical group. That's what National Nurses United does. And then they get their hand and their fist in the air. Wait a minute. Yeah, and you look like a radical, crazy person. This is why I don't like grouping. Because that's what they want to do. And it totally takes away from what most of those people agenda, why they initially probably looked into these different organizations. But that's why I don't like any of them. I don't like any of them. I don't care how much maybe I agree with. I don't agree with any of them because I see the game they're playing. But this Science for the People is all about, protecting the science, but at the same time making the workforce fair. Well, look. You're not going to have any of that as long as you have the global syndicates, their hand on the pulse of everything. And they have control of the Science for the People. So back in the 60s and 70s, when there was people that were trying to come out and tell the truth about the cancer, different things with that, you get these organizations that come up. So it always leads me back to the Bible eventually when I think about all of it. Because ultimately, no matter what path you take, the only one that can fix it is God. Because you can't have that free individual freedom until you remove the wicked. And there are many people, like at your International Nurse Council, that there's many of those nurses there, they don't realize they're radical commies because they've already been radicalized. So they just think that what they're doing is right. So that's the problem. It's that manipulation. It's the mind game. And because they were in the synagogue of Satan for too long, the university, they were in school too long, they don't have the ability to step outside the box. Some of them do, but I don't see many of them that do. They stay on the track. They don't even consider anything else. So that's the problem with any movements and organizations, even Science for the People, which, they're making demands. They're admitting they're radicals. But they're using many things that us as individuals in America that we would agree with, but the way they're going about it is wrong. It's like whether you're united or divided, that you have to realize that global syndicate has its pulse on everything, which ultimately means pray and turn to God, because it is only through Jesus Christ that all of it is fixed.